The sound of Milo's phone buzzing on his nightstand dragged him out of a dream. He groaned, burying his face in the pillow, hoping it was a notification, a spam email, anything but what he knew it was. When the phone buzzed again, he cracked one eye open and squinted at the caller ID, Kieran Drake. A video call, of course. The man didn't believe in weekends, or sleep, or mercy. Milo sat up slowly, his hair a sleepy mess. There was no time to look presentable. "If this man is calling about a PowerPoint, I swear," he muttered under his breath, swiping to accept the call. "Good morning, Evans," came Kieran's voice. Even through the phone, he sounded like a boardroom in human form. "Morning?" Milo croaked. He checked the time. "Sir, it's literally 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday." "I'm aware," Kieran replied dryly. "I need the client reports from last quarter compiled and sent by noon. There's a presentation Monday." Milo blinked. "You want reports on the weekend?" "I want results," Kieran said simply. Milo muted the phone and whispered, "I want a new boss." "Evans," Kieran's voice broke through again. "Did you just say something?" Milo plastered on his best fake smile, forgetting this was a video call. "Nope." Kieran raised an eyebrow from his pristine home office on screen. He looked infuriatingly perfect in a black button-down, sleeves rolled up just enough to show strong forearms. Meanwhile, Milo was pretty sure he still had sleep creases on his face. Milo dragged his laptop onto his knees and opening the shared work folder. His cat Mochi meowed from the corner of the couch. "Not now, Mochi," Milo whispered. "Daddy's getting scolded by Satan." Kieran's voice interrupted again. "What was that?" Satin," Milo lied. "The brand of paper we're using for the reports." Kieran gave him a suspicious look, but didn't comment. Milo started navigating through his desktop, grumbling under his breath as he copied files. The faster he finished, the faster he could go back to doing absolutely nothing. Then Mochi, clearly unsatisfied with the lack of attention, decided to leap onto the keyboard. "No, Mochi!" Milo reached out, but too late. Tiny paws tapped across the keys. There was a ding. Then another. On screen, Kieran's brows furrowed. "Evans, what did you just send me?" Milo froze. His blood went cold. His eyes darted to the corner of the screen. "File sent. Private folder. 1 item. Oh no. Oh no. Not that folder." Milo stared at the screen like it might spontaneously explode. His cat meowed innocently beside him, completely unaware that he had just ruined his owner's life. "Kieran, sir." Milo's voice cracked in sheer panic. "Please don't open that. Please, I'm begging you. Just delete it, immediately." Kieran didn't respond. He tilted his head slightly at the screen. "Milo," he said slowly, "did you just send me a folder labeled private?" Milo's face flushed so hard it felt radioactive. "Yes, but it was an accident. My cat, her paws." Kieran held up a hand, silencing him. "I see." For a few terrible seconds, the line was completely silent. Then Milo heard the faint click of a file opening. "Kieran, no. Don't you," Milo gasped. "Please delete it. Please, I swear I'll work overtime." "I'm afraid I can't quite hear you," Kieran said calmly, leaning closer to his screen. "You're breaking up." "What? No, I'm not. You can hear me fine." "Oh dear," Kieran said smoothly, tapping his earbuds. "Seems the connection's unstable. We'll discuss this on Monday." "Kieran, don't hang up. Don't." The call ended. Milo's eyes were wide with horror. "I'm quitting," Milo muttered, "and moving to another country." Monday morning, 6 a.m. The office was empty. Milo slipped inside. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kieran's face and those cursed photos. He couldn't risk waiting for Kieran to bring it up. He had to fix this. Milo crept down the hallway, swiping his employee ID at the door to the executive offices. It beeped open. "Okay," he whispered to himself. "I get in. I find his computer. I delete the photos from his files. I pretend none of this ever happened. Easy." He stepped into Kieran's office. Milo tiptoed to the computer and jiggled the mouse. The screen lit up. No password prompt. Milo blinked. "Wait, seriously? Who doesn't lock their computer?" He immediately started searching through Kieran's files, muttering, come on, where is it?" And there they were, the photos. Still in the inbox. Opened, viewed multiple times. "Multiple times," Milo whispered in horror. He looked at them more than once. He was halfway to hitting delete when the door behind him clicked. Milo froze. He turned slowly. Kieran Drake stood at the doorway, his gaze fixed directly on Milo. "Well," Kieran said, setting his briefcase down calmly, "I didn't realize my personal assistant's job description included breaking and entering." For one breathless second, neither of them moved. Then, click. Milo slammed his finger down the delete button. Done. Deleted. Gone forever. Kieran's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? Your spam folder. It was infected. I mean virus. I saved you, Milo said, forcing a shaky laugh. Anyway, my good deed for the day is done. I'll go now. He darted toward the door. Kieran's arm blocked his path. Don't, he said softly. Milo froze mid-step, heart hammering. Why? Kieran said slowly, voice dropping. Did you delete that file? Milo laughed weakly. Because it was unnecessary to your productivity. Total waste of storage. You're welcome. Kieran took a step closer, and Milo instinctively backed up until the edge of the desk pressed against the back of his thighs. Milo, Kieran said quietly, eyes never leaving his face, look at me. Milo hesitated. Then, reluctantly, he met Kieran's eyes. You're novice, Kieran said. I'm humiliated, actually, Milo shot back before he could stop himself, and mildly traumatized. Kieran tilted his head. Traumatized enough to sneak into my office before sunrise and tamper with my computer? Yes, Milo muttered. Kieran's lips curved slightly. You deleted the photos, Kieran murmured. You didn't even ask if I wanted them gone. Milo's voice cracked. Why would you want them? Those were private. Private, yes, Kieran said calmly. But they were also intriguing. Milo blinked at him, heat flooding his cheeks. Oh my God, please stop talking. But Kieran didn't. His voice dropped lower, quieter. Next time, Evans, he said, before you go deleting things from my inbox, ask first. And then, like nothing had happened, he straightened his tie and casually walked around the desk to sit on his seat. Coffee, please. Black. 2 sugars. Milo stared at him, jaw hanging open. A week later, there was a meeting. The meeting room was filled as everyone listened to Kieran Drake's voice as he reviewed the company's quarterly strategy. Milo tried so hard to focus on the spreadsheet in front of him, but his boss was sitting right beside him, close enough that he could smell Kieran's cologne, and it made it way too hard to think about sales numbers. Kieran gestured toward the screen. As you can see, the Q4 projections, and then Milo saw it. Down in the corner of Kieran's laptop screen, barely visible, but unmistakable, was a tiny preview window of a photo. That photo. The one. The photo. Milo's brain short-circuited, his blood ran cold, and his hands went clammy. He stared, horrified, praying no one else noticed. It was minimized, but it was there. A flash of pale skin, the curve of his stomach, the damn mirror selfie. Kieran must have felt the panic radiating off him, because he glanced towards him. Their eyes met. Milo's were wide with sheer terror. Kieran's brows scrunched in confusion. Then he looked at the screen and saw it. Immediately, he used the remote to change the slide. The window vanished from view. He went right back to talking about profit margins as if nothing had happened, while Milo sat frozen, trying not to faint. After the meeting, Milo cornered him in his office, cheeks still burning. Why? He hissed, shutting the door behind him. Is that photo still on your laptop? I deleted it, Kieran. Kieran looked up from his desk, calm as ever. You deleted it from my computer, he said evenly. Not from my cloud storage. Milo's jaw dropped. You backed it up? Why would you? Oh my God. Milo groaned, dragging a hand down his face. Delete it, please. I will literally give you my soul if you just delete it. Kieran tilted his head, the faintest glint of amusement in his eyes. Your soul? Tempting offer, but I have something simpler in mind. Milo froze. Oh no. Kieran folded his hands on the desk. Dinner. Tonight. With me. Milo blinked. You're bribing me? Blackmailing, Kieran corrected. And it's non-negotiable. One dinner, and I'll delete the photo from every device I own. Milo squinted at him. You're bluffing. Try me, Kieran said, opening his phone. The faintest flash of that familiar photo appeared on the screen before he locked it again. Milo threw his hands up. You are so evil. You're correct, Kieran replied smoothly. Pick you up at 7:15 p.m. Milo stood outside an enormous mansion that looked like it had been stolen straight from a luxury magazine. Had pictured a restaurant, not this. Where are we? My parents' estate, Kieran said casually, adjusting his cufflinks. Milo blinked. Your parents? I told you it was dinner, Kieran said, already walking up the grand steps. Milo just stood there staring up at the house, his pulse thundering. You tricked me into a family dinner? Kieran paused at the door, glancing back with a teasing flicker in his eyes. I needed a +1. You wanted your photo gone. Win-win. Before Milo could respond, the front door opened, and there stood a woman in a simple white gown, beaming. Kieran, you finally brought someone, she exclaimed, eyes lighting up when she saw Milo. And he's adorable. Milo felt every ounce of blood rush to his face. Kieran just smiled politely. Mother, this is Milo Evans, my assistant. Assistant? She repeated, grinning wider. Is that what we're calling it now? Milo wanted the marble floor to swallow him whole. Kieran leaned in just enough for only Milo to hear, his voice low and amused. Relax, Evans, he murmured. And with that, he placed a guiding hand on the small of Milo's bat, steering him into the chandelier-lit room full of Kieran's elegant family, while Milo plotted his boss's demise. Milo had never felt more out of place in his life. The dining room looked like a magazine spread. Everyone was effortlessly beautiful. Meanwhile, Milo sat at the far end beside Kieran, trying not to spill water on the linen napkin he was certain wasn't meant for wiping his face. Kieran's mother smiled warmly at him. So Milo, how long have you been working with our Kieran? Almost a year, Milo said. He works me pretty hard. The table went silent for half a second. Kieran raised an eyebrow. His brother snorted. Kieran's dad coughed. I mean, at work, Milo blurted, horrified. Professionally, he's just very demanding. In a good way. Oh my God, please kill me. Laughter broke out around the table. Kieran chuckled, amused. You're charming, Kieran's mother said with a grin. No wonder Kieran brought you. That comment made Milo's fork freeze halfway to his mouth. Oh no, it's not like that. Kieran's brother, Damian, who was annoyingly handsome and clearly enjoying himself, leaned back in his chair. Not like that. That's a shame, he smirked, eyes flicking over Milo in a way that made Kieran's jaw tighten. Then I can try making you mine, yeah? Milo almost choked on his water. I beg your pardon? Kieran's gaze snapped toward his brother, the air instantly shifting. Don't, Kieran said quietly. The room fell still. His brother lifted his hands, grinning. Relax. I'm joking, sort of. Kieran didn't blink. I wasn't. Their mother's amused voice cut through the tension. Boys, she said, trying not to laugh. Not at the dinner table. But the rest of the family was already whispering and chuckling, stealing glances at Kieran, whose arm had casually come to rest along the back of Milo's chair, a little too close to look strictly professional. Oh, so that's why he brought him, one aunt teased. Milo's face was so red. Later that night, to Milo's surprise, dinner actually turned out nice. Kieran's mother was kind, his father was polite, and the food was divine. After a few glasses of wine, the family's teasing turned friendly, and Milo found himself laughing. Now, Kieran was talking with his father by the fountain, while Milo stood off to the side. That's when Kieran's mother walked up beside him. You did well tonight, she said softly, her smile warm. It's been years since I've seen my son laugh at the dinner table. Milo blinked. Oh, thank you, ma'am. He's usually very serious. Her gaze softened knowingly. Yes, he is, but not around you. Milo blinked again. Pardon? She chuckled, touching his arm gently. You don't have to pretend you haven't noticed. I know that look in Kieran's eyes. He's trying not to scare you off. Milo's stomach twisted. Kieran? Liking me? He laughed nervously. That's impossible. He's my boss. Her eyes glimmered with amusement. You can tell yourself that if it helps. Before Milo could reply, Kieran's voice called across the driveway. Evans, coming? Milo turned startled, and Kieran's mother gave him a knowing smile. Take care of him, dear. Milo nodded, still stunned. The drive back was quiet at first. Kieran looked relaxed for once, hand resting on the steering wheel. After a few minutes, he said without looking over, You survived. Barely, Milo muttered. Your brother's terrifying, Kieran frowned. His irritating. Milo shot him a look and sank back into his seat, trying not to think about what Kieran's mom had said. There was no way. Absolutely no way. Kieran Drake liked him. The car pulled up in front of Milo's apartment building. Milo unbuckled his seatbelt, still half lost in thought. Thanks for the dinner, Milo said finally. And for not, firing me after the whole picture mistake. Kieran smirked. It was entertaining. Milo groaned. Kieran reached into the suit jacket and pulled out his phone. He opened his photo gallery, and there it was. That picture, on the screen. Milo's stomach plummeted. Wait, Kieran met his eyes briefly, then hit delete. Then he opened his cloud storage, scrolled, and deleted it there too. When he was done, he turned toward Milo. See? He said simply, gone. Milo blinked, unsure how to respond. You actually deleted them. I said I would. Milo let out a breath he had never realized he was holding. Wow, you're not such a heartless CEO after all. Kieran's lips twitched. Don't spread that rumor. I have a reputation to maintain. Milo smiled despite himself, glancing down at his hands. Thanks, really. Kieran watched him for a moment. His gaze softened before he looked away. Then, almost too softly for Milo to catch, he murmured, Didn't need the pictures. I've already memorized you. Milo blinked. What? Kieran gave a casual shrug, eyes fixed ahead. I said, stay safe getting out. You trip on air, remember? Milo frowned, confused, but unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out of the car. He shut the door, turning to wave awkwardly. Good night, boss. Good night, Milo. The car rolled away smoothly, disappearing down the street. It wasn't until Milo was climbing the stairs to his apartment that the words hit him properly. "I've already memorized you." His heart skipped. His mind scrambled for an explanation, but when he reached his door, cheeks burning, he realized he couldn't come up with one. It was another Monday at the office boardroom. Kieran sat at the head of the table, cool and composed, while Milo kept his head down, typing notes. Across from them sat Declan Vale, the visiting CEO from Arcton Industries. At first, Declan played it straight, talk of mergers, numbers, strategy. But the second his gaze landed on Milo, his voice changed. "Ah, you must be the famous assistant," he said, smiling too broadly. "Kieran's mentioned you." "He has?" Milo blinked, startled. Kieran didn't look up from his papers. "Well," Declan continued, leaning forward on his elbows, "if the rumors about your efficiency are true, I may need to steal you for my own company." Milo laughed nervously. "Oh, I'm pretty loyal." "Loyalty is a rare quality," Declan said, eyes glinting, "especially when one's boss is so demanding." Kieran's pen stopped moving. The silence stretched, just long enough for everyone at the table to feel it. "Let's focus on the proposal," Kieran said evenly. Declan only smiled wider, and throughout the meeting, he kept directing his questions toward Milo instead of Kieran, asking for his opinion, complimenting his insight. By the time the session ended, Milo's ears were red and Kieran's jaw was tight. When Declan left, he shook Milo's hand a little too warmly and murmured, "We'll talk soon." Kieran's hand came down lightly on Milo's shoulder as he passed. "No, you won't." 2 days later, Milo opened his inbox during a quiet morning at the office and nearly choked on his coffee. Subject: dinner? From Declan Vale. Body: if you ever want to discuss business, off the clock. I know a great place downtown. My treat. Milo stared at it in horror. There were emojis. There was a wink. He shook his head. He was not replying that. A week later, Milo found himself in yet another suit. He was at a charity gala with Kieran. He'd promised himself he'd avoid Declan if he appeared. That plan failed within 5 minutes. "Milo!" Declan's voice came from behind him, warm and delighted. "You look incredible." "Oh, hi," Milo said. Awkward laugh in place. "Mr. Vale." "Declan, please," he corrected, offering his arm with a grin. "Walk with me." Before Milo could answer, Declan had already guided him toward the buffet, leaning in too close every time he joked. Milo laughed nervously, glancing around the room, and froze when he spotted Kieran across the crowd. Their eyes met. Kieran's eyes didn't move. Something dark flickered there before he began to make his way over. "Mr. Drake," Declan greeted smoothly as Kieran approached. Milo tried to step back, but Kieran slipped his jacket off one arm and draped it over Milo's shoulders. "You're shivering," he said simply, though the room was perfectly warm. Declan raised an eyebrow. "How attentive." Kieran's tone was mild. "It's called management." For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Declan laughed lightly and excused himself to greet someone else. The rest of the evening, every time Declan tried to approach, Kieran found an excuse to steer Milo elsewhere. By the end of the night, as they waited for their car outside, Milo muttered, "He probably thinks you hate him." Kieran slipped his hands into his pockets. "Good." "Why?" Kieran looked down at him. "Because I don't like sharing what's mine." Milo's heart tripped over itself. "I'm not." "You're my assistant," Kieran said, turning as the car pulled up. "Get in, Evans." Milo climbed in wordlessly, pulse racing. The ride back from the gala was quiet at first. Milo sat in the passenger seat, Kieran's jacket still draped around his shoulders from earlier. He could feel Kieran's gaze flick toward him every so often. Finally, Milo cleared his throat. "So, my apartment's the next left." Kieran didn't turn. "We're not going there." Milo blinked. "We're not?" Kieran's voice stayed even. "We're going to my place." Milo sat up straighter. "What? Why?" "For business," Kieran said simply, eyes still on the road. "Business," Milo repeated, incredulous. "It's midnight." "Then we'll call it after-hours business." Milo's heartbeat picked up as the car passed his house. Then they stopped in front of a tall, glass high-rise. Kieran parked, got out, and held the door open for him like it was the most normal thing in the world. Milo climbed out hesitantly. "This doesn't look like your family house." Kieran glanced at him, expression softening just slightly. "That's because it isn't." He guides him to the elevator. "This is my apartment." Milo's brain stalled. "You live here alone?" Kieran pressed the button for the top floor. "I prefer the quiet." The elevator doors closed. When the doors opened, they stepped into his very expensive apartment. Milo turned in a slow circle. "This is, wow." Kieran loosened his tie and walked toward the bar. "Whiskey? Sure." He poured 2 glasses, handed one over, and leaned against the counter, watching Milo take a sip. Okay, so what exactly are we doing here for business? Kieran's jaw tightened, just slightly. I needed to talk. About what? Kieran's gaze met his. About what happened tonight. Milo blinked. With Declan? Yes. Hez persistent, Kieran says, setting his glass down, and he likes a challenge. Milo crossed his arms. So what? I'm a challenge now? Kieran stepped closer. No, he said quietly. You're the prize. Milo's breath caught. What? Before he could blink, Kieran's hand pressed against the wall beside his head. The space between them vanished. Kieran's voice dropped lower. You really have no idea what you do to people, do you? Milo's eyes widened. His brain screamed, say something. Anything. But every coherent thought fled the second Kieran leaned in just a little more. Kieran's jaw tightened. You drive me insane, Milo. That was it. Milo panicked. Right, insane. Yeah, speaking of that, I just remembered I have to water my plants. Kieran blinked, eyebrow arching. You don't have plants. Milo's laugh came out way too high-pitched. Right, not plants. I meant my goldfish. It's very thirsty. Needs me. Kieran's lips curved into a smirk. Thirsty? Yep. Milo nodded rapidly, trying to sidestep him. That's exactly how science works. Okay, well, thanks for the business chat. He was halfway to the door when a low rumble echoed outside. A second later, rain started hammering against the wide glass windows, heavy and loud enough to scare Milo enough for him to stop moving. Milo froze. You have got to be kidding me. Kieran walked to the window, glancing out at the downpour. Looks like you're stuck here. Milo groaned quietly. It's fine. I'll just run for it. You'll be drenched in 10 seconds. I'll dry off. Kieran turned to him. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. You'll catch a cold. Just stay. Milo blinked. Stay? Kieran tilted his head slightly. I have a guest room. You'll be more comfortable here. Milo hesitated, torn between common sense and the heat still lingering in the air between them. You're serious? Very. Milo stared at him for a moment longer, then finally sighed. Fine. Kieran turned and headed toward the hallway. Guest rooms down the hall to the left. Good night, Milo. And with that, he disappeared down the hall. Milo lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the rain still steady against the windows. Sleep refused to come. He groaned and rolled over, burying his face in the pillow. Great. You almost kissed your boss and now you can't even sleep in peace. Then, halfway through grumbling to himself, a thought hit him. He could have just said he had a cat. Milo sat up abruptly. Oh my God, I actually have a cat. He slapped a hand to his forehead. I could have said I needed to feed Mochi. Why did I say thirsty goldfish? Who even says that? His stomach growled in protest, cutting off his self-scolding. Okay, fine, he muttered, slipping out of bed. Snack first, self-bullying later. He walked barefoot through the apartment, following the soft glow from the kitchen. But as he rounded the corner, he stopped short. Kieran was already there. The man stood by the counter, drinking a bottle of water. His hair was a little messy, just enough to make him look human for once. Milo froze. Oh, hi. Kieran turned, clearly not expecting company. You're awake? Couldn't sleep. Milo rubbed the back of his neck. And got hungry. Kieran raised a brow. Hungry at 1 a.m.? Before Milo could reply, his stomach growled loudly. Milo wanted to sink into the tile floor. Kieran let out a quiet chuckle. You could have told me you skipped dinner earlier. I would have had something made. Do you, have anything edible that isn't caviar or kale chips? Milo asked shyly. Kieran set the water bottle down and opened the fridge. Let's find out. He bent slightly, scanning the shelves while Milo hovered awkwardly at the counter. From behind, Kieran's voice came out lower. You really shouldn't be wandering around in just a t-shirt when it's cold out. Milo blinked, glancing down at himself. He was wearing an oversized t-shirt, bare legs and socks. Oh, this was supposed to be comfy, he said weakly. It's distracting, Kieran murmured, without looking back. Milo's brain short-circuited. Distracting? Kieran straightened with a container of leftover pasta, setting it on the counter. His expression was neutral, but his eyes definitely weren't. Yes, because you look like you're freezing. Milo's cheeks burned. Right, freezing. Sit, I'll heat this up. After microwaving the pasta, Kieran placed the steaming bowl in front of Milo. Eat. Milo smiled faintly. Thank you. Kieran leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching him. For a while, neither spoke. The only sounds were the rain and the quiet clink of Milo's fork against the bowl. Then Kieran's voice broke the silence. I've never heard you talk about your family before. Milo froze mid-bite. He hadn't expected that. Oh, yeah, I have a sister. Kieran tilted his head slightly. Really? Yeah, Milo said, voice quieter now. He stared down at the bowl. She's a couple years younger than me. We used to be close. Something in his tone made Kieran straighten slightly. Used to? Milo let out a breath. We don't really talk anymore. Kieran didn't say anything, just waited. Milo gave a small, humorless laugh. She kind of blames me for what happened, for us not having parents anymore. Kieran's gaze sharpened, though his voice stayed low. Why would she blame you for that? It's complicated, Milo murmured, shoulders tensing. Our parents died in a car accident when I was 18. I was supposed to pick them up that night, but I was working late. I told them to just drive instead of waiting for me. He swallowed hard, eyes unfocused. The road was wet. They didn't make it. The silence that followed felt heavy, fragile. Kieran didn't speak right away. His expression softened. He took a step closer, leaning on the counter beside Milo. She doesn't see that it wasn't your fault, Kieran said quietly. Milo gave a weak shrug. Grief makes people see things how they need to, I guess. I moved out after the funeral. I sent her messages sometimes, but she never replies. So yeah, that's my tragic little family story. Kieran watched him for a long moment, his jaw tightening slightly, like he wanted to say something, but wasn't sure how. Finally, he murmured, "You don't deserve that kind of blame." For a moment, they just sat there. The rain kept falling outside. ... And Milo, quietly, almost without realizing it, whispered, "You know, you're not as cold as you pretend to be." Kieran's lips curved in to smile. "Don't tell anyone." Milo smiled back. It was small but real. "Your secret's safe with me." Milo woke up smiling. The rain had stopped. The morning light spilled gently through the blinds. For a moment, he forgot he wasn't in his own bed. Then he blinked at the unfamiliar ceiling and nearly jumped out of bed. "Oh my God, I slept in my boss's house," he muttered to himself, grabbing his phone. "I need to leave before I embarrass myself again." He showered quickly and slipped back into his clothes from the night before. He was halfway through quietly walking toward the front door when he heard a voice. "Milo." He froze. Kieran stood in the doorway to the kitchen in a white sweater. "You're up early," Kieran said, his voice low. "Yeah," Milo stammered, trying for casual. "Just thought I'd head home. You know, feed my cat." Kieran raised an eyebrow. "The one you forgot existed yesterday?" Milo winced. "Yes, that one." Kieran's lips curved slightly. "At least stay for breakfast." "Oh, you don't have to. I already made it." That stopped him. Milo blinked. "You? Made breakfast?" Kieran stepped aside, revealing the table behind him. Eggs, toast, fruit, and 2 mugs of coffee that were still steaming. Milo frowned. "You made actual food?" Kieran gave a small, amused shrug. "Why would you assume I didn't know how to cook?" Milo shrugged, but couldn't fight the smile tugging at his lips as he sat by the table. Kieran poured him a cup before sitting across from him. For a few moments, it was almost normal, just 2 people having breakfast, until Milo noticed Kieran watching him. Not casually, watching him. The kind of look that made his fork suddenly very interesting. He tried to play it off. "You, always stare at your employees like this?" "Only the ones who keep me up all night," Kieran said smoothly, sipping his coffee. Milo nearly choked on his toast. You can't just say things like that." Kieran smirked. "Why not? It's true." Milo could feel the way Kieran's gaze drifted up and down to his frame. He tried to laugh it off. "You're terrible at breakfast conversation." Kieran's reply came fast. "Then I'll stop talking and start doing." Before Milo could form a comeback, Kieran stood and walked around the table. Milo sat stiff in his seat, heart pounding, unsure whether to move. Kieran stopped in front of him, close enough that Milo could feel the faint warmth of his body. His hand came up, fingers brushing along Milo's jaw, tilting his chin up. Milo's breath caught. "Kieran, still planning to run?" Milo swallowed hard. "I probably should." Kieran's thumb traced lightly over his lower lip. "Then why aren't you?" Milo opened his mouth to reply, but no sound came out. Kieran smiled softly, then leaned in, stopping just close enough for Milo to close the space between them. The kiss started gentle, but when Milo's hand gripped the edge of Kieran's shirt, that restraint cracked. Kieran deepened the kiss, undeniably hungry. Milo felt his heart stutter and his thoughts scatter. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Kieran's forehead rested against his. By the time they reached the office, Milo was sure his heart had broken some kind of record, face buried in his hands. "Just act normal," he told himself. "You can do this." Then Kieran walked past his desk, wearing his usual sharp suit and that completely unreadable face. "Good morning, Evans," he said smoothly, as if he hadn't kissed him senseless that morning. Milo nearly dropped his pen. "Good morning, Mr. Drake." One brow arched at the formality, but Kieran said nothing and disappeared into his office. The day passed in a blur. When the clock finally hit 6, Milo started packing up, more than ready to escape before anything else could explode in his face. But then, Milo. Kieran's voice came from the doorway to his office. Milo froze mid-step, clutching his bag. "Yes?" Kieran leaned casually against the doorframe, hands in his pockets. "Dinner tonight." Milo blinked. "Dinner?" "With my family." Milo's brain short-circuited. "Oh no, absolutely not. I am not doing another Drake family dinner." Kieran's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "My mother specifically asked for you." Milo's eyes widened. "Your mother?" "Yes. She said she'd be disappointed if I didn't bring you." He stepped closer, lowering his voice just slightly. "You don't want to disappoint my mother, do you?" Milo squinted at him. "You're using your mom as blackmail?" Kieran's smirk deepened. "It's effective, isn't it?" That evening, they arrived at the Drake family's estate again. The moment they stepped through the front doors, Kieran's mother beamed, sweeping him into a hug. "Milo, I was hoping you'd come." "Dear, wouldn't miss it for the world," Milo lied brightly. Kieran's younger brother Damian leaned lazily against the doorway, grinning like a cat. "Oh, I bet you wouldn't." Kieran shot him a warning look. "Damian." "What?" Damian said innocently, pushing off the wall. "I'm just saying, you two look cozy." Milo's face immediately went up in flames. "Cozy? We're co-workers." Damian gave a mock gasp. "Co-workers who show up with matching glows?" Kieran's jaw clenched. "Damian." But the damage was done. The entire table was now looking at them with barely concealed amusement. Even Kieran's father, usually so stoic, raised an eyebrow. They sat down to dinner, and Milo tried desperately to focus on his plate. Of course, Damian didn't let up. Halfway through the meal, he leaned back in his chair with a smirk. "So," he said casually, loud enough for the entire table to hear, "have you two finally done something together? Or are we still pretending there's no tension in the room?" Milo choked on his wine. "What?" Kieran's expression didn't change. "Damian," he said in that dangerously calm voice, "do you have a death wish?" Damian laughed. "Relax, brother. I'm only asking what everyone's thinking." The table erupted in laughter. Even Kieran's mother covered a smile behind her napkin. "Now, Damian, don't tease them. It's sweet." Milo wished for the floor to open and swallow him. "We're not. There's nothing going on." Kieran sighed quietly, resting his elbow on the table and looking at Milo with faint amusement. "You're blushing." "I'm mortified." "Same thing," he murmured. "Mr. Drake?" "It's Kieran," he said softly, voice low enough for only Milo to hear. "You should probably start calling me that now." Milo's breath hitched. Across the table, Damian groaned dramatically. "Oh, just kiss him already." Kieran turned slowly to glare at his brother. "Keep talking, and I just might." But Damian was having too much fun. "What? You can't expect me not to comment when you bring your adorable assistant here and practically I fuck him over dinner." "Damian!" Milo nearly shouted, his face scarlet. Kieran did as promised. Without warning, he reached over, fingers curling gently under Milo's chin, tilting his face up. Milo barely had time to whisper, "Wait," before Kieran's lips claimed his. It wasn't a soft kiss or hesitant like the first. It was bold, firm, the kind that silenced a room. Milo froze, wide-eyed, heart hammering so fast it drowned out everything else. The shock melted into something hot and dizzying, and before he could even think, his hand gripped Kieran's sleeve, just enough to keep himself grounded. When Kieran finally pulled away, he glanced toward his stunned brother and said flatly, "Now you can stop wondering." The silence that followed was golden. Damian's jaw dropped, his wine glass wobbled in his hand. Then, after a beat, he raised both palms in mock surrender. All right, message received, big brother. Didn't think you'd actually do it, but damn." Kieran's mother clapped her hands together, absolutely delighted. "Finally," she said, eyes sparkling. "I knew there was something between you two." Milo buried his face in his hands, muttering, "I am never showing my face here again." Kieran leaned slightly closer, voice low and teasing. "You probably will. Every dinner ends in my humiliation." Milo hissed under his breath. Kieran's lips curved into a small, satisfied smile. "I don't recall you complaining during the kiss." Milo groaned. "You're impossible." "And you," Kieran murmured, just loud enough for Milo to hear. Are mine. The ride home was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt loud. Milo couldn't believe it. His boss, Kieran Drake, the cold, perfect CEO, had kissed him in front of his family. Milo clutched at his seatbelt, staring strictly out the window, because if he looked at Kieran, he might spontaneously combust. Are you going to say something? Kieran asked finally, his voice low. Milo blinked fast. About what? The public execution of my dignity? Kieran's lips twitched. That wasn't my intention. Oh really? Because it felt very intentional, Milo said, arms crossing defensively. You kissed your assistant in front of your family. Kieran's hand tightened briefly on the steering wheel. I was tired of pretending. Milo froze, his heartbeat skipping a few too many beats. Pretending? They'd pulled up outside Milo's apartment by then. Just then, the rain started pouring. Neither of them moved to get out. I didn't plan to tell you this, Kieran said, but after that photo, I realized I didn't want anyone else seeing you that way. Milo's breath caught. Kieran. Kieran turned in his seat to face him fully now, eyes dark, intense. You drive me insane, Milo. Every day, the way you talk. The way you try so hard to keep things professional when I can see how flustered you get. And then those pictures. That was an accident, Milo stammered. I know, Kieran said quietly, but the moment I saw them, I wanted to be the only one who could. Milo's heart stopped for a beat. You can't just say things like that. I'm done not saying them, Kieran murmured, leaning closer. The air between them turned hot. Milo's breath hitched as Kieran's hand lifted, brushing lightly under his chin, tilting his face up. Kieran's lips crashed into his, the kiss hungry, weeks of restraint snapping. Milo gasped against his mouth, but didn't pull away. He couldn't. His fingers tangled in Kieran's shirt, pulling him closer, answering that heat with his own. The sound that escaped Milo was soft, breathy, and it drove Kieran mad. When Kieran broke the kiss, it was only to whisper against Milo's lips, "You have no idea what you do to me." Milo's hand drifted down Kieran's chest before his brain caught up and screamed, "Stop, before you do something stupid." "Wait," Milo panted, pushing gently at his chest. Kieran paused, breathing hard. "What's wrong?" Milo's voice wavered. "I need to go feed my Kieran raised a brow. "Mochi?" "Yeah, Mochi," Milo said too quickly. "She's probably starving, poor thing." Kieran's fingers brushed his wrist, stopping him for just a second. "You're running away again." Milo's breath shuddered. "If I don't, I'll stay," Kieran whispered, voice barely audible. "Please." Milo hesitated, then stepped outside of the car, the rain pouring down heavily on him. He took a few steps towards his apartment, then stopped. Then, before he could talk himself out of it, he turned back to the car. Kieran was still sitting there, waiting. "Are you coming in?" Milo asked, voice small but steady. Relief and want flickered across Kieran's face, and he got out of the car without a word. Inside, the air between them was electric. Milo started to speak, to make some half-hearted joke, but Kieran immediately silenced him with a kiss. The kiss was different this time, slower, more deliberate. Rainwater slid down Kieran's jaw. Milo's fingers caught in his shirt, tugging him closer until all that careful distance between them was gone. Clothes were forgotten. The room was full of rain and hungry sounds. After, they were tangled together, breathing each other in like they were still trying to believe it was real. Milo's voice came out as a whisper. "This is insane. You're my boss." "Milo." Kieran spoke and waited until Milo met his eyes. "I adored you long before you sent me those pictures. I just didn't let myself show it. I still adore you now." A week had passed since that night, the one that changed everything. At the office, they were the same as always. No one at work suspected a thing. Well, except for the interns who kept whispering about why the CEO always smiled when Milo entered the room. They were careful, mostly. There were stolen glances across the conference table, a lingering hand when passing files, and kisses in the elevator. It was their little secret, until Damian found out. He dropped by Kieran's office unannounced one afternoon, as usual, and caught a suspiciously intimate exchange. Milo was straightening his shirt while Kieran sat behind his desk. Looking way too pleased with himself, Damian's grin spread instantly. "You've got to be kidding me." Kieran didn't even look up. "Get out, Damian." Oh no, 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 Damian said, leaning against the doorframe like he'd been handed the best gift of his life. You two are actually together. This is amazing. Does Mom know? Oh wait, she will. Milo groaned. Damian, please don't. Too late. The man was already typing on his phone, humming a tune of victory. The next week, Kieran's mother invited them over for dinner again. When they arrived, the whole family was already at the table, wearing suspiciously smug smiles. Damian stood as they walked in, clapping once. Ladies and gentlemen, the happy couple. Milo nearly turned and walked out. Kieran didn't even flinch, just calmly set his coat down. His mother swooped in and hugged Milo warmly. I knew it. I told you he liked you. You've been good for him, dear. He actually smiles now. Kieran's father chuckled from the end of the table. That's true. Milo was already red to his ears, but Kieran slipped a hand onto his lower back under the table. A quiet, steady reassurance that made the teasing easier to bear. Later that night, back at Kieran's apartment, Milo was curled up on the couch while Kieran typed something on his laptop beside him. Mochi purred lazily at Milo's feet. Milo looked over at Kieran. Hey, he said softly. You really deleted all those pictures, right? Kieran's fingers paused above the keyboard. I said I deleted them everywhere. Milo squinted. Everywhere? Kieran closed his laptop, turned to him. I didn't say I deleted them from my brain, though. Milo gasped. Kieran, relax, Kieran murmured, leaning closer. It's not like I need them anymore. I have the real thing now. Milo's heartbeat tripped. You're such a menace. Only for you. Before Milo could reply, Kieran caught his arm and pulled him closer, kissing him. Milo smiled against his lips, laughing quietly. It had been 3 months since that night. Milo had finally moved past the nerves that came with dating his boss. But the biggest change wasn't at work. It was at home. Mochi had made herself comfortable at Kieran's place, their place now, technically, and had claimed the expensive couch like royalty. And today, for the first time in years, Milo was sitting on a bench outside a cafe with his sister, Lila. She had finally texted back. She looked nervous, same as him, but there was something softer in her eyes. Maybe the years hadn't taken everything. So, she said carefully, stirring her drink. You look happy. Milo chuckled softly, glancing down at his cup. Yeah, I guess I am. Lila tilted her head. There's a guy? Milo smiled and nodded. Yes. There was a pause. Lila looked out at the street. You know I blamed you for a long time. For everything. It wasn't fair. Her voice cracked slightly. I just didn't know how to deal with losing them. Milo's throat tightened. He nodded, eyes glistening. I know. I blamed myself too. Lila looked back at him, tears pooling but unshed. I'm sorry for that. I can't imagine how it must have felt for you. And I miss you. That undid him. He laughed shakily, brushing a tear off his cheek. I miss you too, Lila. So damn much. They hugged right there, the kind of hug that stitched old wounds instead of reopening them. When they finally pulled back, Milo's phone buzzed. A message from Kieran lit up the screen. Kieran, board meeting in 20 minutes. If you're not here, I'll assume you've been kidnapped. Milo snorted. He's so dramatic. Lila peeked over, amused. So that's the guy? Yeah, Milo said, rolling his eyes. My overprotective, secretly soft boss boyfriend. Boss boyfriend, she teased. You really don't make things simple. Never have, he said with a grin. She smirked. Then go on. Don't keep your CEO waiting. When Milo arrived back at the office, Kieran was waiting by his desk, arms crossed. You're late. Milo dropped his bag and leaned up to peck his cheek before anyone could see. Traffic. Kieran raised an eyebrow. You walked. Emotional traffic, Milo corrected with a grin. Kieran sighed like he was frustrated, but the faint smile tugging at his lips betrayed him. You're impossible. Yet you still adore me. Kieran leaned in, voice dropping low. More than you'll ever know. Milo's face warmed. You're not supposed to say that in the office. I'm the boss. Kieran's smirk turned slow and dangerous. I'll say whatever I want. As the day settled around them, Milo caught himself thinking that this was what peace felt like. A job he loved, a cat that hated mornings, a sister who was back in his life, and a man who made him feel like home. The end.